Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alen, and I'll be giving this talk today together with my colleague Davor Hunski. Officially, we are credited. Oh, but we're not on the display. Yes. Yes, so okay. As you can now see, we are officially credited as Chief Technical and Chief Creative, but we've never been too strict with roles in our team, so at any point anyone can be doing anything. It's only normal for a relatively small team. Lately, the two of us have been leading the design and development of all the recent Croteam titles. Croteam is a veteran game development team from Southeast Europe, and we're best known for Serious Sam games, which we've been making for the past 20 years. We've only made Serious Sams. But now we're here to talk about something completely different.
I wonder, who will you be, our children? Will you love us for having created you? Will the world you build be like ours, or so different that today we cannot even imagine it?
Step into the light, child.
Is there anything that we associate more closely with intelligence than curiosity? Our mythologies are full of riddles and mysteries and divine knowledge.
My child, you may go freely to all the worlds of my garden. But if the tower tempts you, be wise. Do not let yourself be misled by doubt. For it shall bring death and the end of your generations. So be it. Let your will be done.
Thank you very much. So, what is the Talos Principle? The Talos Principle is a game that we call a philosophical first-person puzzle game. Since Croteam is best known for its first-person shooters, the Serious Sam series, everyone was really surprised when they hear that we are working on a philosophical puzzle. So, how that happened actually for us to make this game is actually the point of this talk. We will be talking a little bit about reactive design as a concept, then how this game was actually conceived, about what we experimented with during the production of this game, zatim a little bit about public tests and the demo itself, importance of the value-added content, productivity tools that we use to make the game, and a little section about what went wrong.
So first, a little small introduction. Some of the older ones of us who worked with games with typical big publishers or big game project managers, they would often like to see a game development project planned and managed in a way that you would build a bridge. So during the requirements phase, you specify the bearing capacity. During planning, you create bridge construction plans and methods and materials. And then if you carry out the work according to the plan, you know that the bridge will stand for hundreds of years, usually. To see why this doesn't work for game development, we have to see when it doesn't work for civil engineering either. And that's when engineers are not aware of some force that can influence the bridge. The most usually given example is the Tacoma Narrows Bridge, which collapsed only a few months after it was constructed, and it collapsed because no one ever before had to account, while making a bridge, for the fact that wind can cause vertical forces on a bridge. The main point here is that in almost all cases, usually civil engineers know exactly which forces will influence the bridge. That, however, is not the case in game development, because as we all know, the main point in game development is fun, and it's hard to predict which forces influence fun. In our experience, you have to experiment a lot, you have to see the results, and you have to adapt your plan. That's what we call reactive design. Developers sometimes think that they're planning a game, but in fact, most great games significantly deviate from a plan. That's especially true for new IPs, but even for sequels, it is often hard to know what will work and what will not work. I like to often bring the example of Portal 2 that was said to have originally been designed without any portals at all, and it seemed it didn't work out and Valve switched back to using portals in that game. These moments when the feedback tells you that your plan was completely wrong are the common errors moments, but you shouldn't despair when that happens. You should expect to have a lot of these moments, and they're actually very welcome, and those are the points in the project where your game becomes great. It's important to come to peace with the fact that you cannot know what you want until you see it working, and you'll see a lot of examples of this in this talk. So the project method is not to build according to a plan, but to plan a prototype and then iterate on it until we end up with a great product. That doesn't mean that we are rushing into development without any kind of plan when we do games, but we expect to change our plan even upside down if that's needed, if it fails to deliver fun.
Okay, so how it all started. Back then, we were working on Series M4. And instead of using the usual blue key, blue door thing that we use in games, we want to have something more creative. So we designed this device that we called a jammer device that is able to disable electronic, equipment devices on a distance, from a distance like mines, turrets, or doors. So to test how that would work in Series M4, we created a series of levels and gave them to our internal team to play test through all those levels. And what we found out was that it was really, really interesting and very fun to play. So we started to think what to do with that finding. First, after a few sessions of, let's say brainstorming, we discovered that we have really many more ideas about core game mechanics and about the universe that we could go into, so we decided to make a completely new game for that. So, in other words, if you would take a look, we started working on Series M4 and ended up making the Talos Principle. If we would take that into civil engineering terms, we started building a bridge, but ended up with a tunnel. So that is a Reactive Design concept taken to the extreme, actually.
So when we decided that we want to make a completely new game, first thing that we did, we created a lot of puzzles, more than there are currently in the game. Those were raw puzzles, and they looked like this. When I say they look like this, I mean they all look like this. They all had the same walls, same grass, everything was flat without any details, but there were a lot of different puzzles. First, each designer tested his design for one puzzle on some other design and gave him or her to play. And based on the first feedback, they fixed basic flaws, exploits, something that were obvious that people don't see what they were supposed to see, and things like that. Then, when we had all these parts on all the puzzles, and we created what we call internal testing. So entire team played all of the puzzles one by one. First, we watched all of them play. We took notes, discussed with them. Based on that, we noticed the first few problems that we corrected. First, we needed to add some more tutorials because some concepts were not immediately obvious to people. Another thing that we noticed was that people were getting stuck on puzzles. So, but it wasn't that you could put a finger on some puzzles, say this puzzle and this puzzle and this puzzle, they are the problems. We should remove them or changing. But different people would get stuck on different puzzles. So we decided that we somehow have to make sure that in case someone is stuck on a puzzle, we have to make sure that they can play some other puzzle. So we made the game non-linear in structure. If you're stuck on something, you can choose to go in another path. And usually when people return back to a previously unsolvable puzzle, for them, after a few hours or days, their brain has been working in the background and they can solve it then. The other thing that we did during this internal testing is that we gathered a large data set of statistics on that. First, we measured how much it took to everyone to play the game, to play each puzzle. Another thing was that we had everyone rate the puzzles for fun, for difficulty, each of the puzzles. Based on these statistics, we were able to then first order the puzzles in kind of like progressive ramp of difficulty, and also to intersperse the required tutorial puzzles with some puzzles that were deemed very fun, so that if the tutorial is always a bit boring, then a fun puzzle breaks that thing. And when we had all this structured, we created a full game. It was like an alpha, and it had a complete structure, and it had a visual design that is in the style that is released right now. It had initial narrative in there, everything. And we had that tested internally on 3 team members. They did play the puzzle before, but they never heard anything about the narrative. They didn't know the structure that we planned for that. And they provided some very, very valuable feedback on that. We noticed some things that were blind spots for us. First thing is that Elohim, who is your guiding voice, always tells you that you should pick all the sigils, but you should never climb the tower. If you actually listen to Elohim, you have gathered all the sigils, and the only thing you can do with those sigils is actually climb the tower, but he told you not to. If you want to listen to him, you're kind of like in a strange situation. We solved this after quite a bit of discussion. We solved this by introducing a turn ending, the Gates of Eternity ending, where Elohim allows you to exit the game if you listen to him. We also did a lot of smaller changes on adapting his narrative guidance, mostly that at the beginning he guides you through the tutorials. He also tells you if you're stuck on some puzzles, you should go further and things like that. So after we implemented all this feedback back in the game, which took quite some time, we created a beta version of the game, which we tested in 2 different ways. First, we brought over several friends one by one to the office and had each of them play through the game. First few 2 or 3 hours, we watched them play, and we took notes. We discussed the problems with them. Then we let them go home and play the game from their save completely, and they came back with some more feedback. At the same time, we also sent the game to most notable community members from our previous games, and they both provided a lot of bug reports for us and a lot of feedback. Based on all that, again, the game that seemed complete was showing a lot of more problems. The most glaring problem was that at the start of the game, it took a lot of time for players to play through the Rome before they could first exit into the next worlds, into medieval and Egypt. And it felt kind of like boring because you think that the entire game is just Rome. We decided to do some really extensive cuts there. We removed a lot of redundant puzzles that were not necessary, shortened the Rome episode so that we completely removed 1 level from it. All this work required extensive rework of the sigil progress, which tracks which sigils you pick by solving which puzzle, and also which lock requires which sigils. It's a large table that looks like this, and it has to be rebalanced so that at any point you can be sure that the player, by solving one of the remaining puzzle, can gather enough sigils to unlock the next lock that gives him more mechanics to solve more puzzles and all around. At the same time, you have to make sure that there's enough redundancy that if a player is stuck on one puzzle, he can play some other puzzle to get the same sigil. It takes several days to rebalance this table after each change, but all this work, both on the levels, which was a great amount of work, and this rebalancing, all that was very, very worthy. Because after that, the results, the players were very much more satisfied. On the other hand, we also wanted to improve the visuals and open the levels so that when people start playing, the Rome first itself looks better, and in general, when you're you solve a puzzle and it's exhausting because it's very hard work to think through it. You have some time to take a pause, look at the beautiful environments, and you can explore much more around. The difference is like this. Before, each of the levels had a small enclosed area, a hub, that you can exit from that yard into several different puzzles. In a lot of the levels, we opened up those areas so that you can walk around. You can see the background. Usually it's the cliffs or it's some island or something, but it allows much more space for players to explore. They feel more free. And we were able to put much more secrets, Easter eggs, QR codes, hidden terminals with more bonus text there, so the players have more time to pause between different puzzles to rest. So all this about wraps up the big changes that we did on the general game structure, but there was much more work on smaller game mechanics, and Davor will now talk a bit more about that.
Okay, so I will try to list a little list about a few small examples that we iterate really intensively during the production of this game. First of all, one of the most iterative thing that we had in the game was so-called recorder mechanic. After first several iterations, we had a thing that is not working. People are not being able to play it easily, and we're not enjoying this mechanic. So we gathered together a team of like 5 of us, really determined to get the things done. And we were like discussing for several hours. And after that, we were all confident that it will work like charm. That's it, the final solution. So one programmer goes and code that for like 2 or 3 days. And we all get back together. And the thing is that inside like 10 or 15 seconds, we are completely aware that it's completely wrong. It was terrible. So after a few more iterations, we ended up with a solution that's used in the game that is completely logical, but very intuitive for players to play with. One thing that we also iterated heavily were the mines. Initially, mines were really were very annoying for the players. They exploded in their face because they didn't know when the mines will explode. So we added several layers of audiovisual feedback, and we had to code in the prediction so the mines would not surprise players behind the corners. Then we had the connectors, the connectors lines that you are connecting. Our first implementation had actually was automated. So as you would put down the connector, it would automatically connect with other sources, targets, or other connectors. But in some situations, that would not work. So we completely removed the automation and replaced it with manual selection, which really was very comfortable for players and for us also. One thing that we also heavily iterated and changed it 100 times was head-up display. So in this picture, this is one of the occasions how that looked like in the middle of development. In the bottom right corner, you have this inventory marking that was supposed to help players to know how many sigils they have and stuff like that. But it was really not giving any new information. It was just complicated stuff, so we removed it. In the middle, you can see how the signs that we use around the levels that show you which sigil you can pick were auto-connecting with the markings of the locks. So the player was supposed to see, using these lines, which sigil would end up being used on which location in a lock. But as you can see, it's really complicated. So at the end, we also removed that because it wasn't helping. It was, like making things more complicated. So we did many changes on the head-up display. Actually, I think most of them were just simplifying the stuff down. So then we have this issue of numbering of level gates. As you maybe know, in the temples, you have to exit levels and navigate through the levels as you pass from one cloud to another. In the beginning, we had numbers written above the gates. We thought that would work, and we saw that people just wandering around, didn't know to go anywhere because nobody was noticing that. So we just put it down and to the ISET level, and we thought that will help, of course, because it will be much more notifiable. But then, again, nobody was seeing that. So we just ended up with this version where you have holographic plane and a huge number written all over, like the door in front of you. So you have to pass through the number, and there is no way that you would miss that. So another thing that we also have to change in this situation regarding the ordering of the level gates. In the beginning, we thought that this clockwise ordering that you can see down here will work. It's obvious, you made it in clockwise order, but player, this is the view what players saw in that version. As you can see, as they exit number 1, they saw number 6 and number 7 gates in front of them, and people were just, going straight ahead and ended up in a gate that we didn't want them. It wasn't what we intended to have. So in the end, we ended up with zigzag fashion. It took some rearrangements and to do that. But as you can see, after that, as player exits number 1, gate number 2 is just in front of him, and everything looks like a charm. So the one thing that actually really helped us in getting stuff polished and iterated so many times is the demo. We were asked by the Sony guys to show the game on E3. So we started by taking one level out of the game and simplified it initially, changed a few puzzles, and we created something that we thought it was a demo. So we play tested with that version with two guys that never saw the game, like inside our offices, and we saw that two very smart guys, but it was too complicated for them. So we simplified it again, and then we took that version and went to one show. Then we noticed how people are playing there, and saw that it needs to be changed and simplified even more, and we repeated that after each show. So at the end, we ended up with completely different and much simpler puzzles, but the demo itself was really great at the end. We noticed that almost 90%, maybe even more people that sat down on the show and started playing. It was like half-an-hour demo. Everybody just finished it, and after that, they said it was really, really fun. So you should know that it took a lot of time, really, like many iterations and huge feedback to create this demo, but it was really worth doing that because it helped us to make a game much, much better at the end.
So when we had this demo that we knew that everyone who tried to play it, they all loved it. We thought that we could get some more mileage out of it. And we decided to create a public test of the game, which is something that we've been doing before for Serious Sam games, and we knew that in general it works if you have a good demo. It was used for us for two purposes mainly. First is to raise the awareness of the game. So when we started to promote the game, articles appeared, there were screenshots, there were movies of the game, but most people didn't really get what the point of the game is. It looked like Portal without portals and what's fun in that. But we knew that whoever played the game, they liked it. So if we give the demo, which we knew that everyone likes, we can get the good word of mouth started. And the other thing is that, of course, what we used before in Serious Sam games is that you get a lot of feedback that you can use to tune the game further, both from the gameplay perspective and from the technical perspective. So we did, when we released it, we went to the forums, and there were about 1,000 roughly forum threads and replies for each day, and we had mass replying in our team. Everyone was looking through all those replies and tried to reply back and to help people who didn't understand something, who had any problems, and we fixed all the problems in the public test, which reflected in the game by first, we did a lot of control tuning there. We added customizable running speed. We lowered the default running speed. We added additional auto-aiming for controllers, tweaked the movement in various different ways. There's a lot of small fixes that changed the entire game, not just the demo. Also, we, of course, were able to then fix a lot of important technical and compatibility problems because the user base was much, much bigger than we could ever afford to test internally with different hardware, different OSs. All that, of course, made the final release much, much smoother than it would be without the demo and the public test.
Okay, so far we've been talking about reactive design and how we applied it in Talos Principle. Now, I would like to say a few words about one thing that touched all aspects of the project, and that is the importance of the value-added content. What we mean is that puzzles were really fun in their raw form, but much more is needed to make a great game. So we knew that we want to have a strong narrative. We contacted Tom and Jonas, and they wrote us a mysterious and engaging narrative that occupies players' imagination and creates an incentive for players to play further in order to discover more of the story. So, to enable writers to do their job properly and easily, we gave them tools to quickly test their dialogues directly inside the game. We had to, on the other side, on the content side, we had to make really a huge amount of changes to support the narrative that the guys were delivering. And in the end, it ended up being much, much bigger than we planned. But we said it's okay, because we really find that it's fun and bringing something to the table. So On the other side, we also added several layers of, let's call value-added content. We had much variety to the music. Then we added many secrets and complete secret levels. Then ability to write down the QR codes for the players. We added really numerous like 40+ Easter eggs. And what we could tell you guys is that bottom line and our best advice would be that you should be generous on this value-added content. It really brings much to the table. Okay, so to be able to do so many iterations and to create value-added content in that scope, we needed really great tools. So our team is really small, so we have this so-called mantras. We need this short iteration time. So for the last 15 years, we have this our own editor that enables what you see is what you get editing, so you can playtest the game immediately. And we have added the full geometry editing, so most of the assets that you can see in the game, like terrains, like walls, everything is edited inside the game. So, for example, we also added one system that enables the global animation solving using the GPU. But in general, our team would do anything just to speed up the production process. So whenever a content guy or guy that creates levels or whatever has some problem with the level editor, we would just go ahead and attack that issue and completely remove it and add whatever is needed for them to be more productive, so we can iterate game more times and make it better.
So besides a lot of those tools that we've been gathering through the years, two relatively new tools were cornerstones for this game. The first one of them is automated testing. So the premise is that the game is much bigger than we ever worked on, 20 to 50 hours of game time for a normal player. It takes a human tester who's really proficient with the game. He knows everything. He knows where to go to play the entire run with all the secrets, at least 10 hours. Which is something we cannot really afford. We cannot have a lot of full-time testers, and we want to do a lot of iterations. So the solution for this was to create a bot who can test the game. Bot, of course, is never deconcentrated. He can always run the shortest route. He knows everything. He can do it in 4 hours. But even better than that, the bot can do that in 4 hours of game time. Which means that since it's a machine, we can run it in fast-forward mode, as fast as the CPU can allow. So in fast-forward mode, it runs mostly physics and AI, renders only once in a while, and it's done with the entire game in 20 minutes. This is unexplainable how good it is. So the final goal that we achieved there was that from the point when you submit a new change into Perforce, automated build machine creates a new build with it, completely ready for Steam. Then Autotest just installs this build and runs through the game, and the total turnaround time is 1 hour. So you're free to experiment very much, because any change you want to do, you're not sure it's going to break something. You submit the change, and within 1 hour, you get a notification back from the bot if you break something. It's really liberating for developers. It's interesting stats that overall during this development phase where we use the bot, the main test bot machine has clocked an equivalent of more than 15,000 hours of human testing, which boils down to about 8 years of full day testing for a tester. And since this part of project where we had enough of the game to be able to use the bot, it was less than 1 year, so we would need to employ more than 8 full-time testers who would test all the game all day, every day, besides us not being able to afford that many people. That's like adding 50% people to the team. We also, I think they would probably go nuts by playing the same game for 1 year all around. The other thing that we did there was we implemented the Worldbox system, as we like to call it. And it's, let's start from the premise. So a lot of small details can be wrong when you're making a game. And usually someone is testing the game, And if they want to report each of those problems, they have to either alt-tab to a browser to report it to Bugzilla or whatever you use for that, or he has to write it down to the paper and then remember to file it later. And also he has to describe the problem in enough detail that the developer can later reproduce this and fix the bug. This all introduces a high psychological barrier for filing a bug. And it means that a lot of bugs are never filed, and in the end, you ship it. People usually say, someone else is going to file that, or I'm going to do that later, I'm testing something else, I cannot concentrate on that right now. On the other hand, similar barrier appears for developers when they want to fix the bug, that look at the bug report, and maybe the bug report is not as detailed as they would like. They're not sure if they're going to be able to reproduce it. They have to spend time to go there, see what it's about. If it doesn't seem immediately obvious that it's a big problem, they're just going to skim over it. And again, you end up with a lot of bugs that you ship in the final product, which is bad. Our solution looks like this. When you see a bug in the game, you put your crosshair pointed at the problem, and press one key, and a small dialog appears, and you just write one sentence, like, grass disappears when I move close to this location. A pin appears there with this text. And you press enter, and you go. You're off with what you were doing at that point. There's the interface that you can browse through all those bugs. You can see them here in 3D. And you see all the bugs that other people have reported. You can attach screenshots, logs to these reports. And overall, this makes the tester's life much, much easier and allows the tester to report much more bugs and make the whole process much more enjoyable. On the other side, this is what developers see. They see a list of bugs. They click on a bug, and their view shows exactly what the player was seeing at the game when he reported that. So we remember exact coordinates and the coordinates of the player's view. So if there's something that only appears from some angle or something, you exactly see what he saw, and you know where the problem is. You just fix it, you mark the bug as fixed, and off you go. All of this changed our workflow tremendously. There's much, much more to be said about this. This is a great system. There's a separate talk, which appears at 2 different time slots, by our Nathan Brown, who wrote this system. And if you want to visit one of those talks, I'm going to keep this here if you want to write this down while I talk about some very small details. One interesting thing for us is that it's integrated with Bugzilla, which we normally use to report bugs. So bug reported this way is not something special. It's just one normal bug with all the others. It fits our workflow. The number of reports that is the result from this system has increased significantly. So in previous projects, a productive tester was someone who reported like 30 or 50 bugs for one project. Now, a productive tester has reported 300 or 500 bugs. It doesn't mean that we have more bugs in game. It means that we have less bugs in game because those were the bugs that were not reported and we never fixed them. Another interesting thing is that this system is integrated with the previous one, with the bot, and the bot also reports the problems that he sees in the same way, and he reported more than 1,000 bugs, like, I'm stuck here, this door won't open, this item is not where it's supposed to be. For developers, it's much easier than going through the log. They just load this level, click on the bug, and they see where the problem is, and they fix it. So, something completely different.
Yeah, we've been talking about so far about things that went right. Now a little section about what went wrong. First of all, we should change even more. If you would be given a little bit more time, but we decided to publish the game in December. So first thing that we would change the gates of eternity ending. And now it's said when you pick up all the sigils in the game. But we would make it available as you pick only green and yellow ones. So it would be like when you pick up 50% of the sigils in the game. But that would require a really large amount of narrative changes and some content changes, so we were not able to do that. Then we would probably trim down puzzles a little bit more. That would really, require a huge amount of work on levels, and we would have to rebalance the sigil logs table again. Okay, so we would also remove the X. This is one of the mechanics that we wanted to use heavily in the game. We thought that it would be heavily used in puzzles, but it ended up being used in only one of the secret puzzles. and to be able, it's used to enter the messenger island levels. But probably we would be removing it if we would be able to do it again. So one thing that we would also change is the hint system. Now in the game, hints are given like like a sentence that should hint you what to do in the puzzle. But it's not clear enough for some of the people how to solve the puzzle after reading the hint, so it makes no sense. The hint is not working. So probably we would change that into having a bot or like this blue version of a player solving the puzzle in front of the player itself. So that would what we would probably do if we would have more time.
One of the biggest problems that we had during this game was that we approached localization problem overly ambitiously. The main premise is correct, that the text-heavy game like this, in order for a player to enjoy the game, they have to get all the narrative, which is delivered. There's a lot of text and a lot of audio. It's always better if it's in your native language. However, localization takes a lot of time. It's not that we didn't know that from before, from previous projects, but it's always something that ends up at the end of the project, and it's never scheduled up accordingly. So there were two problems in how it was scheduled. First was that initially it was rushed for an unrealistic deadline, which means we thought that we have to deliver the game earlier. We were afraid of Christmas and everything, so we wanted to push it forward, but we couldn't really release early because of other things. So it turns out if we allowed the localization to take more time, we wouldn't have a quickly done, rushed, and bad localization, which we then later had to fix. And the fixing, all that is still not done on the patches. On the other side, we cut them short from the other side because we were trying to save on a number of revisions in localization by making sure that we deliver English text when they're completely ready. And that means what we should have probably done is that we should have delivered English text when we had the English text. We knew that they were going to be changed because we were still fixing things based on feedback. But we would have to pay more for that localization because the reiterations always cost. But they would have more time, and it would be much higher quality of localization. Maybe it would be worth it in the end because the bad localization that we shipped with was not really good for the game. Important point that we noticed was that individually made localization, what we mean by that is that there were some people, for example, we have a guy, we know this guy, he localized into Spanish. We know this girl who localized into German. And this guy, we emailed with him regularly, he localized our Russian. Those localizations were much, much better than those that we had to outsource to an agency because these people, they approached this problem much more personally. We had much more interaction with them. They asked questions like, what do you mean by this? What's going on in this game? Localization agency did ask some questions, but it was nowhere near this, and the game is really text-heavy, and localization was complex, and it turned out much better when you can talk with those people directly. Interesting stats about localization is this is the countries that the game sold into per units from initial start of the sale. You can see that half of half of the players are from English-speaking countries like US, UK, Australia, etc. And like 15% are some others, which means some of the languages we didn't even try to cover, and we did try to cover much more languages in this game than ever before. But on the other hand, when you see this is what countries they come from, but when you see what their Steam interface is set to, almost 75% are already set to English anyway. Especially for some smaller languages like in Chinese, they're almost even there's a lot of Chinese customers, but they don't play Steam in Chinese; they play it in English. Overall, it's not very clear cut. We cannot say we shouldn't do localizations, but maybe it makes much more sense to initially concentrate more on those that are bigger, like Russian, German, French, at the start, and you ship with that because their absolute numbers are bigger. Those other languages, when the game sells for a few years, there's going to be a lot of people with those languages, but initially when you ship, those people are not even in maybe hundreds, dozens or something. So if you localize to other languages later, a few months after the game is released, you can probably save on time and investment for that and still deliver the game to many more players.
Okay, so a little bit about what went wrong. First of all, we would probably choose another world as a first world for the first episode. Initially, we thought that Roman setting would be the most beautiful one, and we were most exciting to have Roman as the first one. But it ended up that the medieval one was probably better looking for the feedback, and later, as we created levels, we noticed that, like you have more variety in visuals, like snow, like weather conditions and everything. So we would probably change those two worlds. Then there is an issue of probably, or maybe, wrong date for releasing the game. So the game was released in the middle of December. It has one big plus, one big minus, of course. And so the plus was that there were not many big games or any big games going out at the time, but maybe because of the minus, because we were run over by the Steam sales, Christmas Steam sales, and we were not participating in that Christmas sale. Another thing that also went wrong for us, in our opinion, was the effort that we put a real large effort to create this companion app that we called Sigils of Elohim on 3 platforms, on PCs, on Steam, then on iOS and Android. It's a free game, and we thought that mobile version will, will have a huge user base, but it ended up being dwarfed by the Steam, like 10 times. Steam was 10 times bigger than Android and iOS combined. So we probably would not do that next time.
So in the end, if we want to just boil it down to a few words, we think that you should always gather the feedback and you should react on that, and that's the most important thing in the project. And you should also not work to a fixed deadline. If you can afford, you should iterate until you are satisfied with the results from the latest feedback that you got. In order to be able to do all that, you need good tools, as good as you can afford to create. On the other hand, you should be generous with value-added content, add as much things that you can to the game to make the players feel that they're satisfied when they're playing. If we didn't do all that, we wouldn't even start making Talos Principle, and we made a game that we very much enjoy. So this is definitely a good concept, and we will certainly use it in our future titles. Thank you very much for your attention. I think we have about 15 minutes for questions, and later, after that, if someone didn't play the game yet, we have a few free game keys to give out, so come to us after the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions? Okay.
What was development time from beginning to end? And then part 2 of the question is, how much time was spent on the project before you really knew what the project was? And then how much time was spent before you really had a sense for, at least a decent sense for the scope of the project as well?
Okay, so, okay. The question was how long it took us to make the game, right? Then how long it was since we knew how the game would look in general, complete. Well, in the beginning, we were talking about, we worked on Series M4, and then we created this German device, and we started playtesting, and we find out that it's really fun, because one of the level guys actually created like levels, difficult levels that were not able to be used for Series M4. They were much too complicated, but people that tested enjoyed those levels the most. So it was something that we considered to be the way to go. And then we just started.
How long? Huh? How long that was? Like
how long? It was really a month or two. It's really maximum, 1 month and maximum. So we play tested. We knew that we need a universe and story and stuff like that. But the universe reflected our personal reflections. So like how when we talk on lunch, like stuff about AI, about transhumanity, stuff like that. It's really exciting to us. So we knew that we want to talk about that. And then we will start to wondering if we can imagine or invent some other mechanics that we would use in the game also. And actually, one of the most used mechanics, the connected one, was a reflection of one of the, iOS games that my kids play, really. It was just, idea was coming out from that inspiration. So inside a few months, actually, we had a working and operational mechanics, and the levels, like 100 levels almost. It was like 3 or 4 months.
Several months, yeah.
It's a few months. And, well, a small amount of people, really, like 25% of the team actually worked on that. The rest worked on Series M4. But then we play tested internally, and it was really, fire god just happened. It was really loving it. So we contacted Tom and Jonas. Actually, first, initially Tom, because we liked what he did with FTL and Swapper. And it was the style that we needed, and he was a cool indie guy, so we started talking to him, and he said he proposed us to join with Jonas, because he did the Civil Command thing and Infinite Ocean and all those nice games.
Ocean,
yeah. And so it was in that theme, so we wanted together start working on narrative and everything, full production, maybe one year to get to the alpha version, and then polishing it. It took a really long time to polish it.
It's about a bit less than, let's say roughly 2 years to make the entire game from the first idea to the end. Yeah. But a large part of the time was spent where majority of the team was still working on Series M4, and I think, I don't remember exact days, but from the top of my head, my feeling is that at least half of the time was spent just repolishing what we already had the game,
Right. Yeah, we polished heavily.
Really a lot. That's mainly what we're trying to do, is playing here. When you said raw puzzles, that was like 25 or 30% of the project. The rest was all the polishing.
Production polishing.
The game was great too, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Hi, I wondered, during your talk you mentioned that you decided at some point in development to give players more breathing room. And I was wondering, what were the symptoms that players were showing that they needed that extra breathing room, and how much, when do you decide it's enough for them, like wandering time?
Okay, the thing was, you have to interpret feedback. Like when someone says the game is not fun, and it says, I don't know, maybe it's, I don't know, the puzzles are too hard. You have to interpret what that means. Maybe it's not that the reason, maybe the reason is completely different. We thought, and we noticed that when people have more time to wandering around, that they rest their, you cannot always be on your highest intellectual, I don't know, level, so.
That's exactly how we came to this, because we want to do the same for Series M4. We know the same Series M4 when they say that this game is boring, is that when you watch them play, they're exhausted after a few minutes of fights, and if you don't give them something in between, they give up. And we saw the same thing when people were playing the Talos.
Yeah, it's very important to have those ones, the wandering, and there's a place when you add and place your rewards for the so-called explorers, guys that like to explore, and it's really fun to explore and find something, be rewarded.
In the terms of how do you know when it's enough, we don't really have an answer for you. You just have to change things until the people, you have to try to interpret the small signs that you see in people playing and what they tell you, and see when you're done, what we said in the talk, you're done when you see that the people are happy. There's no better measure for that. You cannot plan that.
You have to remember, you have to enjoy all the time, because if you enjoy, if your team enjoys, it will show up. People enjoy it. We are here like dinosaurs in the industry. There are not many living people, older than us. We are making games for like 25 years now.
And the same team, that's the point, yeah.
Actually, yeah, this is the same team, same core team, like 10 people, core. And probably they are throwing out, the early computers that we worked on, they are too old for museums now, probably. So really, we are really old. So we gathered much experience, but you have to enjoy. That's it. Enjoy, and people love the game.
Thank you.
Okay, sir.
So I was wondering about, you guys talked about making a bot that went through the levels super quickly instead of having human testers, because that would take a long time. But well, it's kind of a two-part question. First of all, how long did it take to actually make that bot and make that bot work? And the second part is, doesn't that remove from some of, especially in puzzle levels, isn't the point that humans will get really confused about pathfinding and things like that, whereas bots won't? So how much help was that versus how much time it took to make?
The thing is that the bot, it's always the issue when we discuss this bot. People often confuse, I think, that the bot is not testing the game. The bot is just testing that the game didn't break from the last time that you tested. It cannot test that it didn't break visually. It can test that the gameplay. Let's go back to our experience with Series M4 is always the biggest problem is that you can ship a game that has like a tree hanging in the air or something, but if you cannot open the next door, then people said it's a blocker bug and you can go further. This is what the bot tests for. It's the only thing, and it's your worst risk when you are doing any change, and we had to do a lot of changes. You flip some little bit somewhere in movement code, and puzzle number 27 is not going to be possible. This is what bots let you sleep very peacefully with your changes in this way.
Thank you.
Sir?
Cool. So also about the bot, how much of that was a manual process for your designers? If they were updating a puzzle, how much did they have to do to fix up the bot? Or was the bot driven somehow automatically to find items that were necessary?
I forgot to repeat the questions previously. So this question is how much manual work is required for designers in order to prep for the bot. Yeah. The bot has this nice feature that it's recording as you play. So when you change something in the puzzle, you enter recording mode, you play the puzzle, and the bot remembers just the general things like which item you used where in which order, and then it does the pathfinding, and it doesn't literally retrace your steps. So it is some work, but it's not that big of a problem.
Very cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey guys, I played a demo of this back at PAX Prime, and when I talked to one of the representatives there, he talked about some very strong philosophical themes attached to the game. Based on how the game has done, do you feel like you've accomplished those thematic goals for the game?
So if I understand the question is, did we accomplish the goals that the game has philosophical questions in it?
Yeah, I assume you're trying to explore some of these questions, or at least have the audience explore those. Do you feel like you accomplished those, and what do you think was probably the most effective part of that delivery of that theme?
I think that it's a hard topic because different people approach this philosophy from different perspectives, and for some people who are really, we had people like, I'm a philosophy major and I think that this is just a simple thing, but this is for general population. We feel that from the feedback we get that a lot of people just love it, and it's kind of like opened their mind much more. And it's definitely not going to open a mind for a philosophy major, but it's something that if we did that, it wouldn't be accessible to the general population. But it's something that we like. We like how it turned out. A lot of people say, most of people say that they like it, and even for me, and I guess for most of us, it opened our minds as well, just to think about all those things that much. Yeah. We really think that Tom and Jonas did great work.
Yeah, but the point is that it is a reflection of our initial, our thoughts, our discussions. It's what you can see as Croteam guys talk about during the lunch, okay? Stuff like that. It's we are geeks, we are like intellectuals, we like to solve, I don't know, and we like to talk about religion, future.
We don't run around with miniguns in real life.
No, Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Hi there. You described ordering your puzzles according to player feedback or internal feedback with the fun and difficulty. I was curious if there were other principles or guidelines you used to both design and order the puzzles that you made.
Well, ordering of the puzzles. Well, that's key. That's important. We had some, some people said in our team that it's too slow. Some were not able to solve it because they thought that ramp is too fast. But we actually, I think that we just got it right. Okay, so it is not boring for the really experienced puzzle players, but we see that it is approachable for even small kids or stuff like everyone can start playing with that. So I think that we guessed it right, but we planned in advance, and we tested a lot. We had make enough room for how they say that tutorials, and then we spread them. We designed a lot. We actually spent really huge amount of time talking about stuff like about designing where something should go, where it makes much sense to go, and then test and then
people tell you are completely wrong.
Yeah, that's completely okay.
It's never good for everyone, and that's one of the most important thing for us is here that it's open, so more or less everyone picks their progress as it fits them. It can never be a game for everyone.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Sir?
So the fast forward button really improved my gameplay experience.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was just created to support things like your regression bot and stuff like that. How did you decide to leave it in the game so that players could fast forward?
We actually, that button we had it for decades. Some people used it in earlier Series M Classic games. Started from HD, we usually hid that ability from the final version because we started to care about cheats a lot and make sure the leaderboards are always correct. So we removed that abilities because people could cheat it the other way by slowing the time. Only on Talos, a lot of people requested that. And one of our additional mantras is that we like to accommodate players. When they come to us and say, this is wrong, I want it different in the game, we usually make the option. And it's known that our engine has like that many options that people are always surprised with it. And adding another option, if it's going to satisfy someone, we always do that. It's just this time we made sure that they cannot slow down. They only speed it up. And I guess it helped for you, and I guess it helped for many other people.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi. So you said that you had like over 1,000 posts on your forum initially. So how did you get through that much data?
A lot of typing.
So was there a way that you kind of structured it so some would get more, get precedence over other ones, or?
I'm sorry?
Bigger ones, well, smaller ones. Do we sort them out, right?
We usually have whoever is free at the time goes through the forums, answers what he can, files bugs as appropriate, or say, hey, man, this one is for you, or something. There's not much structure. It's usually we just
we like
handle it organically.
Huh? Like Calvary, like you just go and solve things out. We are not very structured in that.
This 1,000 is like a rough estimate. I know that I come in the morning and I have 300 notifications. I have 50 more. So roughly there was 1,000 a day.
Okay. So just donkey work then.
Yeah, nothing very smart.
Not the answer I was looking for.
People appreciate that. People appreciate when you communicate with them and you fix the things. Players love that. They're in it for this Steam. This is not a console.
Yeah, we think that we do games for people. We enjoy making them. We do them as we would be players on the other side. We would like what we would like to see and play. But we also like to see to be treated, like as players, and that's it. That's how we see the game development.
We're
okay.
Out of time.
So, Alen, if somebody wants to pose us a question.
Yeah, we can continue in the wrap-up room, and we're going to be giving out Steam keys. It's not a bait. It's just if you want to really.
Okay. Thank you.
You don't have to write all move to the wrap-up room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling us.